Hello and welcome to Tech Talks. I'm your host, Diana Ann,
Mariana.
and today I'm joined with.
Jocelyn Guzman.
Today's topic is. Ms. Guzman, would you like to say today's topic?
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. I'm Ms. Guzman. I'm the ninth grade school counselor here at Lynn Tech, and today's topic is the celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month, which started on September 15th and ends October 15th. And so today we're doing a student lunch activity with all students to celebrate our students that maybe identify as, being part of the Latin culture and being Latinos or Latinas. So we're really excited that we get to do this today.
That's great. Let me ask you a question. What do you love the most about your culture?
Oh, there's so much. Both of my parents are from El Salvador. So I grew up eating pupusas. I grew up listening to cumbia. I grew up, being in those large family parties and being the kids that have to be in a room sleeping because we're still partying at 3 in the morning. That's just part of the culture, and it's been so much fun growing up with that. And I think that everything, right, like the food is a big staple. Food brings people together. And so that has always been something, whether, my mom's cooking, my grandma's cooking, one of my aunts is cooking, or one of my uncles is cooking, like we would always be together for the food. And then, of course, as we went, everything just started to get live, and the music is obviously great too. Everybody always just connects with the music in a way, because we have different type of music, different styles. So there's always so much to celebrate, and I love being Salvadorian. I love being Salvadoreña. I love that, we're a small country in Central America, but yet, like, there's so much history. There's so many roots that come from being, a country that small, but being in Central America and being able to just, like, share the culture with so many others. So even though we have similarities, like even our flags all kind of look the same, just that some have more stars than others. But at the same time, we still have our own things. We have differences, whether it's traditional dishes or anything traditional or custom from our own countries. So it's beautiful to celebrate that. It's important because it's part of our identity. It is part of who we are, and everyone has diversity. I think that there's a misconception that if you are not from a specific country, right, like you don't have diversity, and that's not true. Diversity is not just demographics from like where you're from or where your family's from, but also, traditions. Like what kind of traditions has your family raised you with? Diversity can be the beliefs that you have, like, do you believe in God? Do you believe in Buddha? Do you believe in any other type of religion? That is part of diversity too. The languages that we speak, that is also part of diversity, and there's so much more, right? So diversity is super important because it's part of our identification and it's part of who we are. And if we don't really like that diversity, or we feel like we don't identify with that diversity, what can we do to bring new diversity, right? And I think that has been something that many of our students have had to figure out every day, because for me, for example, my parents came from El Salvador, so how they were raised and how they grew up was different from how I grew up, right? Being a student that went to Lynn Public Schools and was born in the United States, like, diversity has changed over time, but as long as you feel like there's a connection to it, it can be a very positive thing in our lives. So.
I agree. Question number 3. Who are some people you look up to in your culture?
In my culture, that's a very good question. I'm going to start obviously with like the people closest to me. So I think my mom has been such an important person as part of like the culture, because she has made sure like my brothers and I always spoke Spanish in the house, right? Like she's like, I understand what you guys are saying in English, but you're gonna speak Spanish in my house. And that honestly really helped me because now I feel very confident being bilingual, speaking Spanish and speaking English. And I think anybody that teaches you something is important in culture. And I think right now, you know, we can look back, and especially today, October 12th is the day of the race, El Día de la Raza. And for many people, it brings up a lot of different controversial topics and concerns because it was the moment where Christopher Columbus came over to the Americas, and there was already indigenous people here in the Americas that were already living their lives. So what we get is we get a combination of those cultures, right? Like we have indigenous roots, but we also have Spaniard roots and European roots. So being able to have different models and have different examples on two different sides of history, I think that's very extraordinary and that's really unique for all of us. So there's a lot of leaders, right, like that have been part of music, and even to this day, like there's so many musicians that are making history right now in the music industry. The president of El Salvador, shout out to him because he has made a lot of change, especially in our country. There has been a lot of corruption in a lot of third world countries, and because of that, it has been hard to kind of see, you know, like a difference. But thankfully, I think everybody's getting on board and they're doing a lot better. So there's so many different models out there, but for sure there are people making history today.
Very true. So going on to our last question. What's one fact or one thing you want people to know about your culture you think people don't know about?
That's a great question. I think one thing that people need to know is that we're always trying to be inclusive. We're always trying to include all backgrounds, all diversity backgrounds, and I think that's something that people should be more happy about to celebrate than to hide, right? Because sometimes we don't want to make somebody feel uncomfortable, but if we all just take a moment to understand each other, whether, you know, we don't know, like maybe a similarity can come out of that, right? Like maybe me and Diane are like, oh yeah, like I grew up doing the same thing, right? Just because we had a simple conversation. So just have conversations, have those courageous conversations, those smart conversations, right? Like about who you are and what your diversity is, so that instead of hiding it or trying to put it away or put it in a box, it's actually celebrated by everyone, right? And everyone understands that. So I think that would be my biggest takeaway in that. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Guzman, for coming on with us. That is it for Tech Talks. I am your host, Mariana, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube and Instagram page, LVTI TV Media.